All right, guys, despite the stock price being in the gutter, victory is here. Why? Let me explain. NIO has essentially won the battery swap race, and it is rumored right now that SAIC Rising Auto is going to partner up with NIO and hop on the NIO battery swap train. Essentially, it's because NIO's battery swap has so much dominance, it just doesn't make sense for this small player to play by themselves. It makes sense for them to join forces with NIO and essentially use NIO's ecosystem and public network. The best way to think about it is when everybody's using the same gas nozzle and you still have your own like separate gas nozzle for your own cars that are low volume, it just doesn't make sense, right? It makes sense to adopt everybody's gas nozzle, essentially, right? And this is the great news that we've all been waiting for, and this ensures that NIO has monopolized battery swap, and NIO is the standard now. NIO has standardized battery swap, and this is just amazing. And basically it just means that everybody that wants to battery swap will have to follow NIO's route, enter NIO's route. It's like Android almost. All right, the best way I can think about it is Android. You want to make a phone, you want to make your own operating system, doesn't make any sense. You got to use Android's operating system. So this is the same scenario for NIO. NIO has essentially monopolized this whole entire thing, and victory. All right, this is where the money is going to be at, my friend. All right, this is essentially the small guys throwing in the towel and giving up, saying that they're not going to try to do it themselves, and they would like to join forces with NIO and have NIO's public network and use NIO's public network, essentially. So you got to see the bigger picture. What's happening right now? NIO is getting the entire dominance of battery swap. Everything is going to go through NIO in the future with battery swap, and battery swap is the preferred choice for a lot of people when it comes to replenishing energy. It is the more convenient choice. So yes, the stock price is very low right now, but think 2 years ahead. 2 years later, when in 2025 you're going to have all these different vehicles from other brands all capable of doing battery swap at NIO's public swapping network. All right, there's going to be two networks, private and public. Private is going to be NIO only, and public is going to be NIO, Alps sub-brand, and everybody else. So you got to remember where all the money is at, and it's going to be a huge, massive cash flow for NIO in the coming years from this alone. All right, just this alone, very little money spent, but huge amounts of money coming in. So first, NIO is going to be able to supply the parts used for that battery swap station and all the patents. So essentially, Geely and all these other guys, they have to buy these parts off from NIO and also pay them for the patents. That's one. First time they earn money. And then they got to get NIO to build a swap station. So that's two. You earn money twice. And then also to operate the swap stations, because NIO is going to be operating the swap station. NIO gets paid 3 times, all right, for that as well. And even though the ownership for the swap station it's owned by somebody else, NIO has total control over it. It's like owning stock in a company, all right? They own that swap station on paper, but actually it's controlled by NIO. And then every swap, of course, there's going to be revenue, and a slice of it goes to NIO. So 4 times NIO gets money 4 times. So multiply that by thousands. And what's even more amazing is that these cars, of course, some of them will eventually go abroad, right? Maybe in the US, in Europe, etc. There's going to be these swap stations out there as well. It opens them up for potentially global energy domination for NIO. All right, NIO can become sort of like the standard for battery swap, like the standard for gas nozzle, not only here in China, but around the world. And Geely definitely wants to sell more cars in Europe. And Chang'an definitely wants to sell cars abroad as well, with their Hongqi brand, etc., etc. And of course, there's going to be some competitors, but NIO is so big already, and so, there's so many swap stations, and so many people have already jumped on board. It just doesn't make sense for people to have their own system. It's like those early years of smartphones where you had Android, and then you have all these other little nitty stuff. And of course, Android is the most dominant one, but you still got the other other guys, other operating systems like Nokia's, etc., Microsoft operating system, but they're all like very small, no adoption, and just tiny. It doesn't make sense for them to continue, and eventually it's all going to become like Android. It's all going to become like NIO swap station. So down the line, this is where all the money is at. Total energy domination by NIO swap stations. Now, you guys probably all heard the news. Stellantis is partnering up with Apple to develop cars capable of battery swap, but this is just very small stuff, and they're very late to the party. Ample swap stations, I gotta be honest with you, small batteries really not capable of achieving great range. And also remember, this is a very capital intensive process. All right, it's going to cost them a ton of money to build out those swap stations. It just doesn't make sense to have one or two swap stations. You need a ton, and really just those two companies themselves, they're not going to be able to beat a union of all these, all these big car companies, NIO, Chan, Geely, and all these other companies together developing and building these swap stations out there. So it's like, two small ants versus like a big Goliath, and several big Goliaths together. It's just not possible for them to ever get any sort of progress or domination anywhere. And they're already late to the party. They're going to develop it. When is the car going to come out, right? And NIO already has swap stations in Europe. And very soon, when NIO expands to the US, and with these partners, maybe perhaps even Ford, possibly, maybe even battery swaps for Ford cars and all these cars in the US, this is going to be amazing. And what I want to see is, because it costs so much to place a battery swap station, NIO's own private network can perhaps be, the development of that could perhaps be slowed down to ease cash burn and focus more on public network, where it's other people putting in the money to build those swap stations. And of course, NIOs can also swap there, but that would make more sense for deployment in the US, because NIO would have to spend hundreds of millions to build out swap stations in the US if they were to build a lot of them. And it just makes sense for it to be a joint operation, build the public network. That would be better, in my opinion. All right, and also you're going to see more use cases with that as well. So I think definitely promoting the standardization is much more important than selling cars right now. And some of you guys tend to agree. Right now, it's more about the swap station partnership than it is about deliveries. Deliveries, NIO has 60% market share. It's already very high, and you guys want NIO to sell even more. And yes, I want NIO to sell even more as well, but you already have 60% market share. The market is only that big, all right, in the luxury EV market, and you can't really ask that much more for NIO, to be honest. And comparing deliveries to Li Auto or XPeng isn't really fair, because XPeng is much cheaper, and then Li Auto has gasoline, so it's not an apples to apples comparison, right? But I understand that you guys are not satisfied. I am not satisfied either. I want NIO to sell a lot more vehicles. And some of you guys are saying they have 8 cars and they can't even sell like 4,000 a week. I mean, like, look at the bigger picture. It's all about swap station energy dominance. Also, NIO has control over these, so they can also double as energy storage and sell energy to the grid. And of course, NIO gets a slice of the profit as well. All very good stuff. And remember, in my super hyper long-term bullish case, it's all about energy domination, energy control, holding the switch. This is what it's all about. Having control of power and be able to do energy trading, essentially, using those swap stations, which they're already doing, okay? And they can do that in 10 seconds. The grid says they need power, 10 seconds, they can unload power from the swap station into the grid here in China, which is amazing. So this is where the money is at. It's more than just a car company. It's an energy domination play that is already panning out. People are throwing in the towels, small competitors, and everybody's joining forces with NIO. They're all like the gas nozzle that NIO has, all right, metaphorically speaking. and they're all trying to go with the same gas nozzle. It just makes sense. And very soon, the little competitors, they're all gonna get wiped out, and everybody's gonna be using NIO's battery swap, essentially. The bigger this gets, you know, the more people hop on board, and even bigger it gets. It's a self-perpetuating cycle, and there's nothing to stop it now. There's nothing to stop it. It's just gonna keep going. All right. So I think this is where people have to think about when investing in NIO. All right, long term. Yes, the stock price is in the gutter, but is it still going to be in the gutter 2 years later when everybody's using battery swap at a swap station where NIO has all the patents? Think about something to think about. So yes, it is frustrating that the stock price is so low. It is very possible that the stock price might get even lower, but the long-term picture is very bright. Me personally, I would be rather buying down here than selling here and chasing up in the 30s or 50s, all right? But that's just my honest opinion. So NIO is actually doing very well in terms of complete energy domination. It's coming, guys. I hope you guys can see the light at the end of the tunnel, because I can see it. The question is, can you see it? All right? As always, stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out.